Hello and welcome to the Pursuit of Possible podcast. I'm your host Luke, and in these episodes we'll be exploring different ways to overcome limiting beliefs so that we have the tools and resources to overcome adversity in our day-to-day lives. I hope you enjoy the episode. Hello everybody, and welcome to the fifth and final episode of the Pursuit of Possible podcast. Only 5 episodes. It's just crazy, like, how life takes you on this journey sometimes where you think you're so invested in something and that you want to go through with it, but then things shift and pivot and change, and it's just this constant flow, I find. And it's just so funny how I'm at the end of the road with this podcast now, and because normally, like, I'll plan the episodes in advance, right? And so it's like I had recorded the podcasts that have come out recently, like, months ago, even before, even before this year. And it's just been really interesting observing and editing them and then releasing them and realizing that in a lot of the situations in which they were coming out, it's almost like what was being said at that time, like, no longer aligned with me at the point in which it came out. Now, obviously, that's not the case, like, with everything that was said in the podcasts, but I did find it interesting how, and it just, something felt so weird about putting something out that I didn't necessarily feel like represented what I wanted to share with the world. But then I was sort of having this conundrum of, like, it's authentic for me to, like, put this out there regardless because it shows a stage of my journey, which it does. But yeah, I don't know, like, I just found that I didn't enjoy the podcast as much as I thought I would. Like, I wanted it to be a space where I could have conversations with people. I think my vision for it down the line was to be able to have people interviewed who have gone through something in particular that they've overcome, something that a lot of people might perceive as being, like, impossible to overcome or, like, very difficult to overcome. But I just, all the energy and, like, everything that I've been doing recently, like, it's gotten to the point where, like, I have to be so much more intentional with where I'm putting my time. Oh man, it's been such a journey recently, like. And I guess where I was going with what I was saying before is that, with pre-recording episodes and then sort of having it come out months after they were recorded and not aligning with what was said completely anymore. This is the first episode of the podcast that's coming out, like, the day after it's recorded. It's currently Saturday. Tomorrow this episode's going out. And so everything that I'm going to share in this episode is going to be a direct, current feeling of where I'm at in life. And that's kind of where I want to take things in the future. I think naturally with, like, some of the bigger videos I do on the channel, like, I'm going to obviously have to spend a lot of time editing those videos. And so, but that's kind of different because with a podcast, it's like, I don't want to share something then put it out 2 months later. Like, gosh, I'm talking for an hour. Like, I feel like so much can be said in that time that it's just inevitable that something's going to be said that I'm like, oh, I don't agree with that anymore. It's uncomfortable, but I think the beautiful thing that this podcast has taught me, or what it's given me, is sort of just a platform to just talk and sort of, like, let go of the fears of judgment and the fears of people disagreeing with me. I think for a while I was, and I still am someone who really doesn't like conflict, and I used to be very avoidant of it, and I have so many defense mechanisms around, like, certain types of conflict, and this podcast has been a really beautiful resource for me to kind of say what's on my mind, even though I have this deep internal fear that I'm going to get misunderstood or that I'm going to misarticulate, because that's something I've always felt like I've struggled with. but just to like put that fear aside and just release it anyway. And, you know, if people say something or I get backlash, then that's fine. Because I think ultimately with what I'm trying to do with the You Effect and just with myself as a person, like, I think naturally as things start to grow, I'm gonna get a lot of like people shitting on what I'm doing. And that's just inevitable. And so, yeah, these 5 episodes have really helped me kind of just come into full acceptance with that. And now I find that I have like so much more capacity to just like put out there like whatever the frick I feel aligned to put out. And, you know, whatever comes after that, I deal with that as it happens. For those of you who are listening on Spotify right now, I am currently in my car. I'm in Brunswick in Melbourne. I've been spending lots of time in my car recently. It's just a really safe place for me at the moment to, yeah, just kind of like express myself and just to sort of like, I don't know, contain my thoughts and express it out. So something that something that I've been doing recently. Actually, literally last night I had the most beautiful experience with this. So for those of you who don't know, I actually grew up writing. Oh yeah, the ADHD is doing its thing now where it wants to change the subject. Before I go into anything else, I just want to say, if you are listening to this podcast, that what you're gonna what you can expect for this episode is just me kind of brain dumping like what's been on my mind recently. And it's going to be completely out of order, but it's going to be very true to like what I want to express. And that's all I really want it to be. And so, yeah, if you're in it for the ride, just expect lots of webs of conversation that make no sense. But that's where we're at right now. And yeah, I'm going to dive straight into it. And this is like great for me. This is like a free therapy session as far as I'm concerned, because I just get to talk, and like I've gotten to the point now with talking where I don't care so much about it having to mean anything, because this final episode is just about me getting some stuff off my chest. Just getting some stuff off my chest. And yeah, so what I was saying before, I grew up and I loved writing poems. That was something that I used to do like back in primary school. I remember writing this poem about this like war hero, and I just loved the idea of rhyming. I think I was like big into Dr. Seuss books growing up, so that might be where I got it from. But then, and it's like a common story even within my life where, you know, I'll do something that I love, and then something will happen that involves bullies that end up shutting down that inner child or that thing that I love doing. And I remember this one time I wrote a poem for my crush. I think it was like grade 2 or grade 3. I wrote a poem for my crush, and one of the kids who used to cause me trouble in school like found it in my bag or something, and then stood up on the table and read it out to the class and just made fun of me like you've never seen before. And from that point on, like, I just didn't do poetry anymore, because you can imagine as like a young kid, like as soon as, you know, you're made to feel like you're stupid for doing something, you're not going to do it anymore, you know. And back in 2019, I sort of rediscovered this love. And I think it's also like translated through my love for like hip hop and rap as well. Like I love Eminem, and obviously other artists as well. But like Eminem's something I sort of grew up listening to as well. And back in 2019, I was sort of like going through a lot at that time, and I felt randomly re-inspired to write a poem. But this time in like the form of a slam poem that just sort of expressed everything that I was sort of like feeling and going through at the time. And I remember it was like the most therapeutic thing I'd ever done in my whole life. 'Cause yeah, it was just, it's like it reignited this sort of imagination and creativity that I once had as a child, but then shut it down because of the people that were making fun of me. And I ended up turning this I ended up recording it properly with a proper microphone, and then I actually ended up recording a video for it and then putting it out there, and that was like terrifying to do. But it was really like healing because, you know, it was a lot safer space as a 19-year-old. You generally have better people around you who aren't going to slander you for like putting something out there like that. And that was really beautiful. And then from that moment, I kept telling myself like, oh yeah, I want to do poetry more. I want to do slam poetry more. I want to record that stuff. I haven't done anything since. And I don't know. I feel like when something like that happens to you when you're a child, I think we really like don't quite always understand just how much it affects us growing up. I think just because I had that one good experience when I put out that video didn't mean that like that whole trauma was fixed. Like, I think it was definitely still weighing on my mind. Like, oh, what are people going to say? I'm going to get judged. And then just recently, I think it was about a week ago to the day actually, I was sitting in a food store just around the corner from here actually. And I saw one of my friends on their Instagram story. They posted this like video that they were at this like vintage market type thing. And it was just around the corner from where I was at that time. And I was feeling a little like flat last Saturday on that day. But I decided like I really wanted to go because I hadn't seen him in a while. And I was like, oh, he's just around the corner. Oh my God, I am fogging up on the camera. Love that for me. Why am I fogging up so much? What's happening? Okay, we are back. My lens just got a bit foggy. So, yeah. What was I saying? I actually, like, that whole intermission completely threw my story out of whack. But what I was going to say is, so I ended up going to this vintage market, right? And I saw my friends, which were great. And then there were these two people that were sort of situated, like, near the entrance. And they were just rapping. They were just freestyling. Just a bunch of, like, white guys, like, you know, and I mean, the reason I'm saying a bunch of white guys is it's often kind of, like, considered cringe, I guess, in, like, the hip-hop sort of industry to rap as a light-skinned person because we obviously generally don't have as good of an ability to rhyme and rhythm. That sentence alone was just... Anyway. Anyway, you guys know what I'm saying. But something happened within me when I was watching these guys, like, rap and freestyle. It, like, awoke in something in my spirit where I was like, oh my God, like, I really want to, like, be involved in this. And so I ended up, you know, talking with them. And, they meet up every so often and do these little, like, freestyle community, like, rap gatherings where the whole intention behind it is literally just to express yourself. There's no, like, expectation to actually be able to rhyme and whatnot. And I was so excited because I feel like this has been something that I've been, like, wanting to do for so long, and I've just felt so ashamed to even, like, look for it because it's like, yeah, like, why would I want to sort of get into that kind of thing? This is actually being a pain in the ass because it's going foggy again. I might just have to embrace the fog, because I think it's just important for me to record this. So if you're watching this on YouTube, it's probably going to get really foggy and it's going to look like shit, but who cares? Just embrace it. You're here for my voice anyway. It's a podcast, for Pete's sake. It's definitely getting foggy, but I'm just going to leave it. Yeah, and so just literally last night, I went to the first gathering. It was just 3 of us. There was me, my friend Louis, and Carmen. And they have been sort of doing this for a little while as well. And it was just the most beautiful night I've had in such a long time. To be able to be in that space and just use, like, the art of freestyle as a way to express yourself, it's just been something that I've been longing for so long. And they just held this really amazing space for me to just, like, say what's on my mind. We did these different activities to sort of like get into different characters, and they even allowed me the space. Now, this is the beautiful part. I felt really called to like recite the slam poem that I made back in 2019, but I had never like performed that in front of people before. But they just created such a comfortable environment to where I was like, I felt comfortable enough to ask them if they'd be willing to listen to me like recite it. And so it's so foggy now, by the way. What the fuck, man? Whatever. You know what? I'm gonna be like a silhouette here, but that's just how it's gonna be. And yeah, so they gave me the space to just be that person and to recite that slam poem I made back in 2019, and they just held the space for me so incredibly well, and it was just this really beautiful, and I would call it healing moment for me, because I was able to express myself like I wanted to do when I was a kid, but I got bullied, except in this situation, I was held. They came and hugged me. They were like, "We got you. That's awesome. Like, you did amazing." And that was everything. It's getting so blurry now that I'm just losing focus completely. Oh my Lord, it is foggy up in this joint. All right, we're back. I'm changing the angle. I'm just, I don't care anymore. So it was this just really beautiful thing where I was able to be in my full expression in the way that I felt like I wanted to do, and just being accepted doing that. It was so freaking cool, man. And it's just inspired me so much in what I want to do with the U Effect as well. I think, like, I'm facilitating this space for people to be their authentic selves, but it's just crazy because even I have areas in my life where I'm needing that exact space. But that's the beautiful thing about starting a community, is that oftentimes we start these communities because we're looking for that community ourselves. And that's what's been crazy about these events that I've been doing as well. So I started doing events in March. I think I did my first one. And I knew I wanted to do like events for a long time. But then when I did the first event, just like the freestyling, it just awoke something in me where I was like, man, I love this. I want to do this more. And what I found is like, because for a long time, I've always felt like I struggled to find like my people. And I think that's because I spent a lot of my life like trying a bit too hard to fit in, because that's sort of what I was programmed to do, because I wasn't accepted as I was. And so it took me a long time to kind of get to a point where I just felt comfortable, like truly being me. And I think I only really started doing that like a couple years ago. And it's just crazy because since starting the events, like the people that go to them and rock up are literally like the people that I would want in my tribe. Like, it's just like, and when I say tribe, I mean just like my inner circle. Like, and it's just crazy how like when we embody our authentic selves, just how much it like magnetizes people towards us that we are looking for. And it's just, there's just so much rediscovery in my life at the moment. And and I'm going to be like completely vulnerable, as I often am. Like, life's been putting me through limbo recently. Like, it's just crazy how like the pendulum swings all the time. Like, we get to a point in our life where like we feel really grounded, we feel really in control, things are going well. And then suddenly something throws us out of whack. But it does, when it throws us out of whack, really all it's doing is like throwing us out of whack to be more in alignment. And like, you know, I had to give up on the weekly uploads, which was really hard initially, to focus more on events. And what happened a few weeks ago is I actually got really sick. I got really sick. And it was not fun. I think it stemmed from a bit of burnout, but then I went on this like run that I just didn't recover well from, and it got me really ill. And then I had a blocked ear for 2 weeks, and then it just like threw me out of whack. Like, I did not realize something as simple as a blocked nose could like have such a crazy effect on like your well-being and your just overall like ability to go through life. And yeah, and even now, I'm still kind of recovering a bit from it. Like it threw me out of routine completely. But what it's kind of done is it's allowed me to really like take a step back and just realize that there are still even now some parts of my life that I'm holding on to that probably don't align with me. But it is so hard to let go of things when we've spent so much time building something. It's getting foggy again, but I'm just gonna freaking leave it. You guys might not see my face at some point, but so enjoy it while it's here. But yeah, I can't keep fixing it because it's just I'm never gonna get this podcast on, and it's about what I'm saying, not what you're seeing. So it is what it is. Where was I? Yeah, I was about to be vulnerable. What was I going to be vulnerable about? Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I've been in a bit of limbo. So, oh, man, where do I start with this? So, the end of last year was really hard for me. I ended up putting, financially in particular, right? Oh, man, this is hard to, like, get out there. And hard to communicate so publicly. But pretty much okay, this is how I'm gonna phrase it. So like certain things sort of made me feel like I wanted to change how my business was running. So I've been running as a sole trader, operating like my own like filmmaking business. It's called Marriott Visuals. And I've been doing that since like the end of 2018, right? So I've been doing it for like 5 years or so, even more than 5. What's that? 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Oh, 6 years. There you go. Almost 6 years. And I sort of went through this journey in 2022 where I was like kind of traveling around to different countries, and I felt very inspired by some of the people I was surrounded by who had started companies and were operating under different structures. And I like convinced myself that I wanted to transition to a company rather than a sole trading business. And I ended up investing so much money in setting up that entity. I invested so much money, you don't even want to know, in like a web domain that was owned by someone else, and I spent so much money like getting that domain, which I don't even get into it, but like and then like trademarking stuff for the U effect, and then like, you know, new equipment and all this stuff that where a lot of them were like impulse decisions because I was just like, I just want to do this now, I just want to make it work. And then I went on a trip to America for the U effect, which some of you guys will know about because I think there's a video on the channel already about that. And needless to say, I was really not expecting that trip to be as challenging as it was, and I ended up in a lot of situations which demanded a lot more finances than I had available to me at the time. And so coming out of that trip, I found myself in a lot of debt because of the company, but also because of just that trip in general and the travel expenses related to that. And so coming out of that trip, I was in a really hard spot financially, and I have since cleared those debts. I am debt-free now. However, upon having so much time to like reflect and think about it, like the real reason I wanted to start the company in the first place wasn't even my own reasons. Like it was influenced by other people, but because I invested so much money, that's just put me through so much hardship in the last year, I have this attachment to it that I just can't let go of until recently. And it's been holding me back because I think I've always had this weird, Gen Zers can probably relate to this, but I've always had this weird like identity crisis when it comes to like my brand and my brands, as well as me as a person, as an individual with values and philosophies and yeah. And the thing that I was sort of going through the last few years is I was just sick of being identified as a filmmaker. I was sick of that just being everything that everyone ever knew me for. And I can understand why that was the case, because I sort of, like, filmmaking was a tool for me to be seen when I wasn't, like, seen growing up. And when I discovered filmmaking, it was like my way of being like, I'm going to get so good at this so that it's just undeniable that it was almost like a piece of validation for me, right? As someone who, like, didn't really feel like they were accepted much growing up. And then I think sort of realizing that that was the place it came from, I then sort of grew this resentment towards filmmaking. And so I was like running under Luke Marriott visuals on Instagram, and then I realized I don't want to be just a filmmaker, so I kind of turned it into a personal account. And then that's sort of what inspired the company, because I'm like, well, then I don't, it's something that I do, but it's not me. It's not me. And then I've recently had this other freaking thing happen where I'm like realizing now that the company, and it's called Limitless Productions, right? So it's like, the idea behind Limitless I love, but the word productions throws me off. Again, this is all just like silly when I say it out loud, because it's all just words, right? But what I've come to realize is that, okay, let me paint the picture a bit more, because where I want to go in life, what I want to do in life is I want to be doing the U Effect full time. I want to be using this platform. I want to be running events. I want to be traveling around telling stories that matter, that actually like spark something within people. I want to be doing that full time. But to do that, I need to have sufficient finances, and, a lot of that kind of stuff involves a lot of travel expenses and whatnot. And the way I was operating as a business, just doing client jobs and whatnot, isn't the pathway to get me there. It's just not, because I require a more passive stream of income, right? So I have enough time to do all the stuff I want to do with the U Effect. And so me starting a media production company makes no freaking sense, because then I'm going to be chained to doing client work, right? I don't want to be doing that. And what I've realized is what I want to be doing is creating an online business, an online brand, an online business. And the best way to do that, I've learnt through mentorship and through courses that I've been doing recently, is that the way to go is a personal brand, which makes so much sense, because people connect with stories and personal, just personal story behind why you're doing what you're doing. And that's why I think the U Effect is strong with the events, and we've been getting good turnouts, is because there's that story essence there. Limitless, there's none of that, because I almost refuse to put my story there, because then I feel like I'm associating myself to filmmaking. Isn't it interesting how us Gen Zers like to have crises over brands and personal brands and stuff? Anyway, where am I going with? So yeah, this is sort of something that I've been going through recently, because I can't decide how I want to operate, how I want to do things. I know I want to do the U Effect, and everyone keeps telling me that I need to monetize the U Effect, but something just does not feel right about that right now. And I understand that there is a level of shame that I need to let go of when it comes to doing that. But it's so important for me that the U Effect is a movement and a community that remains accessible for people. And I'm not saying that like it becomes inaccessible if I start charging for events, for example, or promoting a course or something. But what it does is that it kind of makes the brand more intimidating to people, because I think as soon as you introduce money, a lot of people are going to be turned away from that. Now, I actually think that there's nothing wrong with me doing that. But the thing is, if I want to be as like receptible and I guess like I want anyone to be able to see the U Effect and not feel threatened by it in any way. And for me to like uphold that right now, I don't want to put a price on anything. I don't want to sell anything. I don't want to build a brand just so I can make money off of it. Like I actually want to keep the U Effect pure and almost like I almost don't want to be earning money from it right now, which is ironic. And this is why I've been confused, because it's like I want to do it for a living, but I don't want to do it in the way that people are telling me I should do it. And so that's why I've decided that I'm going to start a personal brand that has similar themes to the U Effect, but is separated, and then just keep the U Effect being as pure as it is, and just really simplify things. I have been so inspired from things recently, from people. Like a friend of mine recently has been talking about how like he just tries to simplify his life as much as possible, and I love that. I love the idea of simplifying things. It's so hard for me to do because of how my brain operates, but like, you know, it's been good to like receive that and like be inspired by that, because it really gives me more inspiration to choose moments of being like, all right, I'm not actually gonna deep that so much, and I'm just gonna do it this way. And so, yeah, but like, you know, while I have some kind of clarity now about where I want to take things, it's still like, it's been so exhausting just not knowing. And then the sickness and then all of that, like I've just been feeling really weirdly out of whack. And, but this is perfect timing for the podcast, because now I have the space to just chat shit and talk about it. So it's great. You cannot see my face right now, but that's okay. I'm not adjusting it again. Actually, I wrote down notes because there was a few points of conversation I did want to touch on. I literally have 2 dot points. I don't know if you can see that on YouTube. Probably not. That's all right. And I've already touched on one of them. Yeah. No, I've touched on both of them. Well, one of the things that I wanted to talk about was like why I started the U Effect in the first place. And the reason I started the U Effect was because I realized that what I feel like my life mission is and purpose is to help people find authentic freedom. And what authentic freedom means to me is freedom that revolves around realizing that you are the best version of yourself. You're the most fulfilled, you're the most happy version of yourself when you're able to be in your full expression as you are, and that be enough, and to feel content with that. And I want to help people unlock and find that freedom, because I feel like I'm so close to that freedom myself, and discovering that freedom for myself has just unlocked so much in my life that I just am so grateful for. It's allowed me to travel the world. It's allowed me to start a community. It's allowed me to like be accepted just being who I am, because I've allowed myself to magnetize the right people around me. And like, this goes without saying, but if we're spending our life, you know, being fake and trying to fit in, we're just going to attract those kinds of people around us. And we're not going to really be living our best selves doing that, because we're going to be putting on a filter. And that's why like the freestyle rapping last night was just so potent and so cool, because it was like, and if you saw like what we were doing, we were goofing off, like it wasn't that serious at all, but it was okay, and we held each other, and we loved it. And it's just amazing to be able to have a space like that. And it's just reiterated how important it is for me to be doing what I'm doing and helping people find that authentic freedom. And I think like growing up in Canberra as well. So for those of you who don't know, Canberra is the capital city of Australia. It's where, you know, a lot of people in government work and the public service. I worked in the public service myself back in 2021. But being in a place like that also means that it's a very comfortable bubble. And not even shading on the fact that it is that. Because, you know, sometimes people's authentic freedom involves living a more simpler life. And that's freaking beautiful. That's beautiful. But what I do find is that there are people, even I know, who are from there, who just have so much creativity, and you can just you just know that they want to share stuff with the world. But the kind of mindset that growing up there has sort of given me, at least, I can only speak from my own experience, is that it's sheltered me from experiencing the world in a way that just aligns so much more with like who I know I am deep inside. And what's really helped me was exposure to a new city and exposure to new people, which is why I'm such an advocate for traveling as well. And I think that's such an important pillar for the U effect in the future, because traveling really allows us to like discover what else is out there. It's such an amazing source of inspiration, and yeah, it's insane. And and it's hard as well. It can be so hard because when you're traveling and you're exposed to all these new experiences and people and philosophies, it makes you realize that like everything that you thought you knew about the world and about yourself isn't what it seemed originally. And then you go from that place of, like I mentioned before, you go from that place of control and that place of knowing to suddenly having no anchor whatsoever. And then it's scary, and then it's hard. And I think that's what a lot of us as humans tend to avoid. We want this anchor in the ground all the time because it's a sense of security for us. We want security as human beings. But then I think what that does, that comfort zone, that anchor that we try to keep in the ground all the time, actually stops us from being our authentic selves and stops us from living our truest essence. And in turn, we don't feel as fulfilled because there is a subconscious part of us that wants to be doing something else. And the fact that we're not doing that thing, it's going to tug on us. It's going to tug on us constantly until we do something about it. And I think that's why a lot of people in Canberra, like, or no, actually, no. Let me change up the scenario. I guess like Americans, right? A lot of, generally speaking, because it's not all Americans, but a lot of them don't tend to travel so much outside of their country because of the way they have been surrounded with the media and growing up. They're told that everything that they could ever need is in America. So why would you leave? And it creates a comfort where you're sort of almost in this prison cell, or no, prison cell's harsh, but this confinement of beliefs that's just so contained. And you as a human naturally, subconsciously might have all these things you want to do outside of this container, but as long as you're keeping yourself in that container, things aren't going to feel right. They're just not. And this is exciting me so much to talk about because, like, I think with the videos that we've been doing on the U effect, like, I haven't released my travel videos yet. Actually, the next video that's coming out on the channel is something we filmed actually a few years ago, which is like funny to be putting it out, but it's where we took an 84-year-old skydiving, and it was that video concept that ended up being the catalyst to everything that's happening now. And actually, this has been great to talk about because I've been trying to figure out how I want to structure the edit of that video, but now I'm like, I get it now. It's almost like a deeper story of like how I came to live, like how I'm living now, and that's so fun. And yeah, just like even with going to the freestyle rapping stuff last night, like and hanging out with my friend Louis, like I was sort of just observing him throughout the night, and I've sort of realized I'm like, man, because I've had this like thing in my brain where I'm like, the U effect needs more characters. We need more people to be involved in the videos who like bring a particular energy and vibe that people connect with, because I think that's what Yes Theory do really well, is they have a lot of people who jump on board who a lot of the audiences connect with, and not everyone's gonna connect with me, and that's so fine. But the more kind of variations and characters we can have in these videos, like the more variation of people who align with it are gonna, show up for them. And so that's another really exciting thought. My battery is dying, so I'm just going to quickly fix that. Okay, we're back. It was so funny. So I've got 4 different batteries, and 3 of them were dead. And I was like, oh my God, if this 4th one's dead, I'm not going to be able to finish this episode. Like, I would have cried. But lo and behold, it's got charge, which is good. Oh man, this is so therapeutic, guys. This is so nice. I don't know how many people are actually listening up until this point. If you are, definitely let me know. But yeah, I'm really excited. And you know what's really beautiful about just doing the U effect and just really embracing, or what's been really good about doing the U effect is just learning. I've learnt to really embrace change. Because I know and I have known that I've wanted to do this YouTube thing, but like, sometimes it doesn't always look like the way we originally plan it to be, and that's so okay. Because as we go through life, I feel like we sort of make these new realizations that sort of make us pivot our paths. And yeah, I'm at a point now where I'm like, I was in limbo for a bit there. Just kind of like how I was in limbo in 2022 when I was going traveling a lot because I was sort of rediscovering myself. The process of rediscovering is terrifying. For all the reasons I mentioned before of not having, your feet in the ground and not having an anchor. But I think we really need to change the narrative around this because that rediscovery is there to serve us. It's there to actually like benefit our lives. Like you wouldn't want an anchor all the time because then you're gonna not grow. There's no growth in that. And I know like this is such a common saying like in regards to like failure. It's like, failure isn't really is an ironic word because there's no such thing as failure because failure is just learning and we adapt and we grow from that. And it's just crazy how as humans we've sort of developed these like negative connotations to particular like words and feelings and things happening, and it's just like, yeah. Oh man. I think one other thing I want to touch on within this podcast as well is something that I've been kind of going through recently as well is like, I used to be someone who was super reliable when it came to like replying to messages. Now, obviously, as you become an adult, things change and whatnot. But like, it's genuinely gotten to the point now where it's like extremely difficult for me to actually like keep up. It's so hard. And especially now that I run events, like, I have a lot more conversations and connections with people that I didn't have before, which requires me to be a bit more active on social media, which is so hard, by the way. And it's beautiful, and I'm so grateful for all the people around me, but it's hard. And I'm going to say this openly as well, like, throughout the last couple months, like I've had some difficult situations with some close friends and some difficult situations with people who I'm close with, and I've had to take some like time away from speaking to those people, and it's really hard because like I'm not going to be ready to like speak and to communicate again until I've actually given myself time to properly reflect and integrate, and it's impossible to do that without actually setting the time aside to do that. But then the thing that I've been struggling with the last few weeks is like, because I've been sick and I've just been so out of whack, I've had absolutely no capacity for that time. Like I have had no ability to set time aside for that. And I hate that because, I want to be able to have conversations with these people again, but I just haven't been able to. And I'm trying to learn self-compassion with that because, nothing should have to be rushed at all. Like, life is in constant, like, fluidity, and things stop us from being able to be, like, who we want to be in moments, and sometimes we just have to surrender to that. Oh yeah, something that I also want to share quickly. This is not the first time I've said this on the channel, but one of the people who inspire me most within my circle is my friend Monique Medford. And something that I've been sort of thinking about a lot recently is just the power of simplicity. And I think as humans, we're constantly hungry. We're constantly trying to improve. And whenever we set like a new bar for ourselves, it's crazy how that sort of then becomes the new standard for what makes us feel content or fulfilled. It's like, for example, if someone who never goes to the gym just goes to the gym, that's like peak fulfillment. It's like, man, I showed up for this, right? But then say you've got like someone who's used to going to the gym 7 days a week, and can squat 80 kilos. If they rock up to the gym and they're only able to squat like 40 kilos or whatever, they're going to feel like ass because they're like, man, I can do so much better than this. But then it's crazy because then if the new person that went to the gym squatted even half of what they're used to squatting, they'd be like, whoa, it's amazing. And it's just crazy how our experience of life is just so contained within the confinements of like the bars we set for ourselves. And this isn't to say that we should set low bars, because I think it's very natural and normal to want to grow. Like, I think as humans, we want to grow. But something really beautiful, and I think this is where like the power of gratitude really comes in so strong, and this is why I feel like reflection and gratitude is so important, because if we don't give time for reflection and gratitude, we're going to go about life subconsciously, without even realizing it, raising the bar for ourselves. And then what's going to happen is we're going to raise the bar so high for ourselves that it's going to become harder to even meet that standard. And then we're going to feel like crap because we can never reach that bar. But the importance and where gratitude and reflection comes in is it gives us the ability to really sit still and be like, man, I've got this, I've got that. Like, life is good. Like, yeah, I didn't do that thing to elevate my growth today, but like, look how far I've come. Look what I've been able to do already. And I've been thinking about that a lot recently. And Monique is someone who has done a lot in her life. She has traveled the freaking world. She's like, in the process of like starting a charity. She's like started different businesses that have done like well. Like, she's someone who you could like generally consider very successful, at least I feel like. And she's currently on this journey at the moment where she's just reading a lot. Like, all of her time's just being spent reading, and it's beautiful. And she's so content with that. And it's just beautiful because she posted this thing on her story like the other day where she like cooked a bunch of peas in a microwave, and there were these two peas that were like together in a pod, and it just sent her crying in happiness because it was literally like two peas in a pod. Like, it was so poetic and it was so simple, but it was like, it made her so freaking happy. And I really resonated with that because there are like small things in my life where I'm like, man, nothing makes me happier. Like, that's why I love living in the inner north of Melbourne, because just aesthetically, the way the buildings are laid out, sometimes with like that Victorian styled like architecture mixed with like a lot of like nature sort of being overgrown around it, that just gets me excited so much. And I just think it's beautiful because if we allow ourselves to really just be grateful for the small things in our life, like, that's the key to happiness, really, because life is just a collection of small moments, right? At the end of the day. And, yeah. And just as a final thing, well, how are we doing for time? I hope this podcast doesn't go over an hour, but you know what? It's going to be as long as it needs to be, because maybe I need to talk for longer. So who knows? One last thing that I can think of right now that I want to touch on is, and this is like not a controversial discussion, but like, I have an unpopular opinion when it comes to the word positivity. And, there's this buzzword going around at the moment about like toxic positivity. And I don't like the idea of toxic positivity. And I understand why it exists and why there's awareness around it, because at the end of the day, if you're feeling like crap, you don't want to like do yourself a disservice by completely suppressing that and not feeling how you feel. It is so important to feel what you feel. But I feel like oftentimes toxic positivity and the way people interpret it is that you can't think positively about the situation, because by doing that you'll be suppressing your feelings, and I don't agree with that at all. I had something happen to me like 4 or so months ago where I was like having a lot of financial hardship, and there were some weeks and days in weeks where I would wake up and I was like broke, like I had no money, and I have this sort of natural like coping mechanism. Well, it's not even a coping mechanism. Like I'd have this trauma response of feeling stuck and stressing and like having this really fear-based mindset, and it would never help me, right? It would never help me. And on those days, and there was this one day I woke up, I had like 30 cents in my account or something, and the battery is almost dead. I'm going to just try and whack this story out and then wrap it up quickly. But pretty much like on this particular day, I woke up, had no money in my account, was feeling stressed. And then what I noticed, I noticed this graffiti on the side of this fence, and it says, "I hate being here in this fake world." And I remember being like, man, I really relate to that today. And you know what the insane thing about that is? I would not have noticed that if I was like in a uplifting vibe. And what that goes to show me is like we find things in our world that kind of confirm the beliefs that we have. It's like confirmation bias. Like we see things and observe things more when we feel and are in a particular energy. And so because I was feeling shit, I noticed more shit things around me. And that inspired me to like change my mindset, where I'm like, all right, I'm going to actually try to be positive. Now, some people would label this as toxic positivity, but for me, it was actually just like, no, I acknowledge that I feel shit. I feel shit, but I don't want to feel shit anymore. So I'm going to be positive so that I can kind of rewire that. And that's what I did. And so I tried to like look at things as opportunity rather than as a stressful situation. And that actually allowed me to see more opportunities around me. I ended up going through the contacts of my phone. Don't know what inspired me to do that, but I decided to call one of my clients and then had a conversation with them over the phone. They ended up paying like for all the work I was meant to be doing for them in a few months' time, like up front. And it ended up like getting me out of like a difficult situation that I was in. And that wouldn't have happened if I didn't shift that mindset to like almost like victim-like to then positive. So yeah, I feel like I rushed that a bit, but I kind of had to because the camera's about to die. I spoke about so many random things in this podcast. This is officially the end of the Pursuit of Possible podcast series. Thank you guys so much for listening, and just allowing me to have this space to just talk about stuff with different people, but also just to be able to talk about the stuff that I am talking about now. Thank you for giving me the space. Thank you for listening. And yeah, there's a lot of really exciting things to come on the channel, and I can't wait to see what you guys think of it all. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being you. Keep shining your light in this world, and I'll see you all soon. Goodbye. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Pursuit of Possible podcast. If you guys enjoyed, please consider giving us a follow on Spotify or whatever you do on Spotify. I actually have no idea. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss out on our weekly uploads. See you next time.